Barbers of Reddit, what was your "oh shit" moment? My coworker at a salon was cutting a girl's hair and found lice the girl's mom had left her for the trim, and she had to wait for her mom in the lobby. We spent the next hour or so frantically cleaning around all of the other clients and stylists to sanitize the whole place top to bottom. When the mom came back and asked her why she didn't have her hair cut, she replied, "They found out. WHO brings their lice-ridden child to the salon." The typical not a barber here, but I used to go to a local barber college to get my hair cut because it was cheap. One girl had never cut a white guy's hair and her teacher asked if I was okay with it. I said sure, she has to learn somehow and it's just hair, it can be shaved and should grow back. Told her how I wanted the hair cut. Pretty simple, a little short and off the ears. Jokingly said, "Do not take my ears off." Long story short, I left with a bald head and a band-aid on the top of my left ear, after bleeding like a stuck pig due to blood thinners, where she nicked me with the scissors. Even her teacher couldn't save the haircut. I did my best to try and help the girl calm down as she was ugly crying. Went back a month later and asked if the girl was there. Thankfully she was, and I simply smiled and said town 2. She did it perfect second time around. My dad let me line myself up once. Fucked up. Decided to cut the whole thing off and go bald. The plus side to being black is that 99% of the time being bald looks fine. I guess I was part of the 1% that looks like a fucking Whopper mall ball. My mom was cutting my hair when I was younger. Around second grade. She was only using the razor at one point, without the thing that makes it a certain length. Towards the end, a piece of hair fell on my nose and made me sneeze. My head moved, and I ended up with a bald spot. I ended up having to get shaved completely bald to fix it, and she refused to give haircuts after that, except for one time during COVID. I'm not a licensed barber or professional by any means, but I have been cutting my own hair for about 10 years. I'm really good at it. Save a lot of time and money. Know exactly how to do it, and never have to worry about getting something I don't like anymore. But it has taken a lot of trial and error over the years, especially when I was learning how to fade. This was 3 years ago. I start cutting like I normally do and start fading my sides. At the top on my head the guard pops off. Huge fucking chunk falls down my face. So me, still learning, not knowing how to fix it, decides it's best to just buzz it, which I've really only had to do 3 times in my career. I look dumb as shit with a buzzed head, so for some unknown reason, I also decide to shave my beard, thinking maybe it'll equal it all out. Nope. Apologies if this offends anyone, but I look like I'm receiving chemo at this point. Bro, I look like a thumb. Big toe looking ass. So I hated myself. My wife still makes fun of me to this day. I got endless shit from my family, and was attached to a hat for like 2 months. This was the moment that made me never fuck up again. Barber here. I had a client who came in that I hadn't seen in about 2 years. He was an older gentleman that used to come in once every couple months, but he just stopped after his wife passed away. Anyways, I guess his family put him in a home after she died and they did haircuts or something in there. I don't know, I didn't have enough time to figure it out. But his caretakers brought him in for some reason, dropped him off, and said they'd be back in a couple hours. Personally, I thought it was a dickish thing to do, but I always liked Gary, and it was cool to see him again. He smelled terrible, though, and all the color in his eyes was gone. His skin seemed really, God, I don't know, crispy? You could almost hear his skin crackle and pop when he moved his disgusting arms and legs. Gary wasn't even chatty like he used to be, but I figured he was depressed since his wife died. His kids abandoned him, and he smelled like bags of trash from a Chinese restaurant. Whatever. But the whole time he was waiting, he was wearing a baseball cap. Pirates or something. I dunno. I don't follow teams. Dude sits down and he mumbles some shit about his haircut. And I'm all like, Gary, it's going to be alright, no big deal. Let's get this hat off and I'll give you a trim on the house. Let's get you good. When I took Gary's cap off, there was a lot of resistance. I guess the cap didn't come off easily is what I'm trying to say. I had to actually use both my hands to get that sucker off. So I lift the cap off with both my hands, and I'm gripping the bill so tightly I hear a small pop. Dude had the cap on tight. Right. Even weirder. Some bits of Gary's hair came up with the hat. It's starting to fall out now. Big guy, I asked. Gary mumbled a response. I put his hat down on the counter and went to work. Or would have, because that's when I noticed that Gary had a huge rash on his head where his hair should have been. And even worse, the rash was moving. It was fucking wiggling. Even. I was scared as shit and leaned in. Oh no. I went back to his hat and saw that some of Gary's hair in the hat was moving as well. A little bit of vomit came up from my stomach and I told him we would have to do the haircut another day. The caretakers told me that they did know how long Gary had maggots in his head, but he only lived for a couple more months. Not a barber, but my cousin worked in a salon when I was a kid and I would hang out there a lot. After school, one day she cut a guy's head pretty bad with the clippers. Lots of blood, but it wasn't too serious. This led to them dating and eventually getting married. The barber my dad took his kids to growing up kept a plastic ear in a big glass jar of water. Told all the little kids, jokingly, that it was the ear of a little boy who wouldn't be still when getting a haircut, and he accidentally cut this kid's ear off. Said he was keeping it in formaldehyde to remind us all to be very still. It largely had the desired effect on the younger kids. My entire life, my last name is Barber. Oh geez. I've been barbering for 7 years and I've got a couple stories. Mostly communication errors. I had a client come in with a super tight haircut. Looked like it had just been cut. And asked for a 0 on the sides. I'm not sure what this guy was on, but a 0 is bald to me. So I start my bald line for my fade and he freaks out that it's way too short and I ruined his haircut. Since this never happens to me, I got super upset and felt absolutely terrible. I've had clients who text me and ask for an appointment and then I forget to book it. Then they show up and I'm busy and they don't have an appointment. I always comp them because I feel terrible. I used to work in a low-income neighborhood and worked at a black barber shop. I was cutting a kid's hair and since it was so curly, you couldn't see his scalp or anything. Started cutting into it and sure enough, he had ringworm. I have hella stories, but those are just the ones that come to mind. Why did I read this thread before lunch? Damn it. Poor Gary though, rest his soul. I'm not a barber, but one time my mom cut my ear with the hair clippers and she freaked out whilst I was sat there wondering what the hell was going on until she shouted, "Get a tissue. We have blood loss, XD." Not me, but my mom, who is a hairdresser. Did you know that some hair dye chemicals don't play well together? Turns out the lady had used some sort of home hair dye chemical that basically has tiny bits of metal in it. She didn't mention. My mom goes to dye her hair and puts the professional dye on it, and the hair more or less starts melting as the dye reacts. Her hair was totally ruined. There was no saving it. Only thing to do was to just get the new dye off as fast as possible. She was pretty understanding about the whole situation though. My aunt was a barber in the 70s. One day during her shift, a man came in and asked for a trim. During the cut he just offed himself. My aunt got a bit of brain in her mouth. When I was a little kid and hid under the table with a pair of scissors to cut my own bangs, my mom screamed when she saw my work. I remember doing it by feel. Didn't even have a mirror. but I don't remember how it looked. Ironically, a few years later my mom tried to trim my bangs and she did a horrible job. I had to wear a hat for a while. Brother of a barber who used to be a hair model. Back when I used to have a good head of hair, his instructor told a story during one of the shows about a mobster falling asleep during a shave. While shaving him, he accidentally cut off a mole. He said he kept on putting towels on him and then snuck across the street and hid in a bar watching through the window until the mobster left. Since he was only renting the chair in the shop, he grabbed all his stuff and found another place to work after he was sure the mobster was gone. When I suddenly have a heart attack before finishing my client's cut. I was the client in this situation. My hairstylist was doing the usual cut on me, and when she was cutting around one of my ears, her scissors caught onto the top inch or so of the cartilage, like the actual top part of the ear. She kept cutting harder and harder, trying to get this thick hair not cut. It took me saying, "Ow," for her to realize she was cutting my ear. No blood, no cut, just a really bendy ear. She was distracted talking to my mom. Since I was in like middle school at the time, she never stopped saying it every time I get my hair done. Hasn't happened since, either. When I was a kid, the hairdresser nicked my brother's ear and it bled a bit. I'm pretty sure that was an oh shit moment for her. My brother didn't even care. I was in school still at the time and was cutting this guy's hair. He brought his girlfriend along and she was watching like a hawk over me. I'm halfway through the cut and almost done with the fade when the person next to me has their trolley too close to me, so I go to move it, but I didn't pay attention that my other hand had a clipper still running with no guard on. I made a nasty line through the fade that didn't look intentional at all and was sweating my ass off on how I was gonna fix this. The girlfriend of course points it out and the client is actually super chill about it and has me basically just run a super high 0.5 on the sides and back. 3 years later and to this day I haven't had an incident that bad.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Haircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.